Nous allons parler justement à propos de ces luttes de la question des désobéissance civile. So, Kumi, I'm very happy to see you and to welcome you. I remember the first time I saw you, it was in Vancouver in 2010. It was the second Congress of the International Trade Union Confederation. And for me, it's a good example to make social, politique and environmental struggle. Je voudrais te demander comment, toi qui as lutté pour la libération de Nelson Mandela, contre l'apartheid, qui a après passé sur les questions environnementales et climatiques en dirigeant Greenpeace International pendant 6 ans, de 2009 à 2015, et qui récemment a pris la direction de Amnesty International à Londres il y a 1 an. Cette trajectoire qui t'a fait mener tant de combats, comment est-ce que tu expliques ce parcours et comment tu mêles toutes ces questions qui sont autant politiques que climatiques et qu'environnementales?
Merci beaucoup. Greetings, everyone. Well, you know, I'll tell you a story. When I started at Greenpeace in 2009, and I did these interviews, and all the journalists in my first month were asking me this question, oh, so you've been a human rights and a gender equity and a poverty, anti-poverty campaigner. Why are you giving up on human rights and going to environment? And I said to them then that the struggle to avert catastrophic climate change and the struggle to ensure that we have genuine human rights must, can, and should be seen as 2 sides of the same coin. And now, funnily enough, after 6 years at Greenpeace, I go to Amnesty, and many of my Amnesty colleagues, when I talk about climate change, are saying, oh, why are you bringing climate change to human rights? And let me be clear. Human rights, the biggest human rights challenge that we face right now is in fact from climate change. We must remind ourselves that the planet does not need saving. The planet actually is fine. Because if we continue on the path that we are, we warm up our planet to the point where our water resources are gone, our soil is depleted, we cannot grow food, we have hot weather like this in May. And I know all of us are very happy today, me too. I like the weather, I'm from Africa, I'm really excited. Somebody said to me, oh, I'm feeling orgasmic about how hot it is today. But let's understand that the fact that it is as hot as it is today is a signal that things are changing. So we have to see everything as connected. And I would argue that one of the biggest catastrophic errors that activism made was allowing the issue of climate change to be framed primarily as an environmental issue rather than as an issue of the economy, as an issue of how we understand consumption, the quality of life we lead, and so on. So we need, I would say that I've been very influenced by the feminist movement. The feminist movement gave us a very powerful concept decades ago when they gave us the word intersectionality, which means that if you're trying to advance gender equality, you needed to understand how gender intersects with race, class, and so on. Similarly, if you're trying to address climate change, you need to understand how climate interacts with other things. Let me just end with one lighter note. You know, when I was 15 years old, I got involved in my first protest. It was against the inequality in education. And the slogan at the front of the march was, we want equality, we want equality. By the time the slogan got to the back of the march, the younger kids were chanting, we want a color TV, we want a color TV, because they thought that was the slogan at the front. Because kids in white schools had color TVs and kids in black schools had no TVs. And to be honest with you, at that time when I was 15, I wanted equality and a color TV almost equally. But right now, I tell you that story to say that as somebody who's been involved in fighting for justice when I was 15, I must come to the conclusion that my life has been a colossal failure. Because all of the things that I've been fighting for since I was 15, and my daughter tells me this, she said, Dad, you're useless at what you do, because everything you've been working on since you were young, on gender, on poverty, on human rights, they're all going this way. So I conclude by saying that we have to see that these struggles are interconnected, but those of us, like myself, who've been around for a long time, must open up space for young people to emerge and take leadership. Because we must also recognize that people of my generation have run out of fresh ideas. And if you take what's the most exciting thing in the climate movement today? Anybody want to guess? It's Greta Thunberg and the high school students who have mobilized with no money, with just passion, with an idea. They've mobilized more than 10 million young people in high school across the world. So we have to look at the world we live in now. We have to stop saying young people are the leaders of tomorrow. If young people wait for tomorrow, there might not be a tomorrow to take leadership. And we need young people to assert their leadership. And I'll just conclude by saying, and the young people tend to be much more creative than older people. So I was in a march with them in London, 10,000 young people. And as we marched past Downing Street, you know where the British cabinet meets? 2 young people picked up a sign and said, you can get better cabinets at IKEA. You get it? I know translation is an issue here. The other slogan they had was, keep Earth clean. It's not Uranus. Okay, that might also struggle in translation, but some people are getting it. Thank you.
Kumi, tout à l'heure, sur le grand podium, juste avant Aya Nakamura que tu as rencontré, tu as démarré ton intervention sur le grand podium en parlant de Trump. Aujourd'hui, les tensions internationales, les élections au Brésil, aux États-Unis montrent qu'il y a des raidissements, des nécessités peut-être de hausser le niveau de la lutte pour le climat, pour les droits humains, parce que les périls sont plus nombreux devant nous. Tu es passé de la lutte donc contre l'apartheid, qui était une lutte en partie qui a été violente, à la lutte de Greenpeace, qui, d'une certaine manière, tout en étant non violente, est assez radicale, puisque tu as été arrêté en escaladant une plateforme pétrolière et qu'il y a eu 30 militants de Greenpeace qui ont été arrêtés par l'armée de Poutine en mer du Nord. Et du coup, aujourd'hui, quel est le rapport à la non-violence dans la désobéissance civile? Est-ce qu'on peut rester dans une action qui est parfois peut-être inefficace?
If history teaches us anything, when humanity has been confronted with a major injustice or a major challenge, whether it was slavery, women's right to vote, apartheid in South Africa, civil rights in the United States, and many, many other struggles. Those struggles only moved forward when decent women and men stood up and said, enough is enough. We're prepared to go to prison if necessary. We're prepared to put our lives on the line if necessary. If the climate scientists tell us, as they did in October last year, we got 12 years to get emissions to peak and start coming down before we're on the route to catastrophic climate change, right? And catastrophic climate change, let me just say it again. It is not about saving the planet, it's about saving humanity, right? The truth is, if we let things continue as it is, and once we become extinct, the good news is once we are out of the way, the forests will recover, the oceans will replenish, and so on. So don't worry about the planet. Understand that we are in a life and death struggle here to ensure that we protect our children and their children's future. And when we have leaders like Donald Trump, who describes himself as a stable genius, right? You must go and look at him saying he's a stable genius. And now the only country in the world where the head of state is saying climate change is not real. And if the political processes and the Republican Party, for example, is not prepared to hold him accountable, then it's up to us as citizens to do that. And the reason why civil disobedience is so critical is that all our political and business leaders, or most of them, are suffering from the same medical condition. And that medical condition is that they all seem to have a problem hearing. So when people have this problem of hearing, you got to be creative, you got to be dynamic, you got to be powerful in the way you make sure that it's impossible for them not to hear your demands. So I want to say, though, that I understand the anger of young people. They feel betrayed. They feel that our leaders have sold out and so on. But let's be clear. When our resistance to injustice gets violent, the enemy wins. The enemy is able, if there's a march of 50,000 people and 3 people throw a stone and break a window, all the media coverage is about the 3 people who broke the window, and the issue of what we were fighting for gets lost in the noise. So I would say violence is unstrategic, it's unethical, it's counterproductive. But some of our enemies would like to suggest that saying you support civil disobedience means you support violence. No, there are thousands of ways in which you can engage in civil disobedience. Hunger strikes, occupations of facilities. You know, but the important thing is what civil disobedience works well in one place, in one country, in one context, might not work well in another place. Let me give you an example. Do you know what mooning is? Mooning? You know where like 4 people stand up, they all pull their pants down and show their bums at the same time? So now that might work in France, might work in London. It's not going to work in Egypt. It's not going to work in Saudi Arabia, right? So when we say civil disobedience is the way to go, I'll tell you in apartheid South Africa, let me give you an example of civil disobedience in a context of repression. So the law in South Africa banned most resistance. So we had to be creative to come up with ways in which we could resist, right? So one of the things that could never stop us was we would get 50 cars, right? We'll mobilize everybody who had a car. To be honest, some of the cars we mobilized could barely meet the definition of being a car because it was falling apart. But we could put posters on it with our messages and drive slowly through town on a Saturday. And they couldn't do anything with us. They couldn't arrest us because what we were doing, we were driving through town. Yes, we had a poster with the anti-apartheid message. So provided that message had not been banned already, they couldn't stop us. But we could take over the town for an entire Saturday and get our message across. So civil disobedience is what has delivered justice in many, many contexts around the world. And I defend it fully. And I think that right now, if we are not prepared to engage in civil disobedience, when our political leaders have lost the plot, when our business leaders are in denial, when the most powerful nations in the world are not prepared to wake up and smell the coffee that we are running out of time, then civil disobedience is not only the right thing to do, it's almost the most important thing we need to do at this moment.
Merci. C'est en effet assez clair. Actuellement en France, il y a une campagne assez virulente de désobéissance civile qui est menée par une association qui s'appelle Action non violente COP21 et qui consiste à décrocher. C'est une campagne de désobéissance civile qui repose sur le décrochage des photos officielles de Macron. Toutes les mairies, les 36 000 mairies, ont une photo, un portrait officiel de Macron. Et cette campagne vise à enlever les photos, les décrocher, les réquisitionner, les voler, pour montrer que la politique de Macron, c'est du vide sur la question climatique. Et que donc, il y a le vide sur le mur des mairies. Et je voulais donner la parole à quelqu'un qui est là, qui est à ANV COP21, qui va présenter en quelques minutes cette campagne. Et j'aimerais avoir ton sentiment, Kumi, sur cette campagne qui a été déjà menée dans, je crois, une quarantaine de mairies. Et une quarantaine de portraits ont été décrochés. Sandy d'ANV COP21 est là. Et on va lui laisser la parole quelques minutes.
Alors bonjour à tous, moi je m'appelle Sandy, j'ai 24 ans et je fais partie du collectif Action non violente COP21 et je fais aussi partie des jeunes pour le climat qui font la grève tous les vendredis pour militer pour un avenir soutenable. Et merci. Et je suis venue vous parler de cette campagne parce qu'en fait cette campagne on l'a lancée suite à l'affaire du siècle. Je pense que vous connaissez tous l'affaire du siècle qui a été signée par 2 millions de personnes en France pour dénoncer l'inaction climatique, l'inaction de nos politiques et de nos gouvernements face à l'urgence climatique. Et la seule réponse de nos gouvernements par rapport à ça, ça a été qu'ils ne changeront pas, qu'ils resteront et qu'ils garderont le même cap et qu'ils ne changeront rien. Du coup, ils nous ont complètement ignorés. Et donc nous, avec notre collectif, on a décidé de passer à la désobéissance civile 100% non violente, comme on le fait toujours, et d'aller dans les mairies, décrocher les portraits d'Emmanuel Macron pour, en tant que synonyme du vide de sa politique en termes de justice climatique et de justice sociale. Et donc voilà, donc c'est une action 100% non violente. À l'heure actuelle, on a réquisitionné une 40aine de portraits. Et je pense qu'on peut dire qu'on a touché un point sensible et qu'on a dérangé la communication d'Emmanuel Macron, qu'il essaie de faire passer à l'échelle internationale et qu'il essaie de se faire passer comme champion du climat. Et étant donné que maintenant il y a beaucoup de répression face à nos activistes et qu'il y a 10 procès en France et il y aura un procès le 11 septembre pour ça. Donc une répression assez forte, étant donné que pour une action 100% non violente et pour quelque chose de symbolique et un objet qui n'est même pas important pour l'État parce qu'il est synonyme de rien, nos activistes encourent une peine de prison de 5 ans et 75 000 € d'amende. Mais bon, tout ça pour dire que, en fait, aujourd'hui, il faut voir la désobéissance civile comme quelque chose de légitime. On est légitime à désobéir. On nous fait passer pour des personnes, pour des radicaux. Mais en fait, on est légitime à désobéir parce que chaque bataille compte et chaque dixième de degré compte. Et sur ce, je vais vous laisser. Merci beaucoup.
Avant de laisser la parole à Kumi qui va nous dire ce qu'il pense de cette forme d'action, évidemment, sa réaction montre qu'il est plutôt favorable. Je voudrais juste dire qu'il y a eu un procès, le premier procès des décrocheurs qui a eu lieu à Bourg-en-Bresse mardi dernier et que le procureur a demandé 2 000 € d'amende. Il n'a pas demandé de prison, mais il a demandé 2 000 € d'amende et on peut se poser la question légitime qui est pourquoi 2 000 € puisque cette photo vaut 8,70 € sur le site officiel de l'Élysée, qu'elle n'a aucune valeur symbolique réglementaire, c'est-à-dire qu'un maire peut décider de ne pas mettre cette photo. Ça n'est pas le drapeau républicain au-dessus de la mairie, c'est un usage. Et donc, on voit bien que là, le gouvernement, en tout cas la justice, se demande comment traiter ça, puisqu'il n'y a pas de base réglementaire et juridique pour traiter ça. C'est un vol. Ils auraient pu voler un porte-plume. C'est la même chose, vous volez un bout de papier sur le bureau du maire. Donc, pour qualifier cet acte, ils ont dit que c'était un vol en réunion. Certes, ils sont arrivés à plusieurs. Et par ruse, et ça c'est assez drôle, c'est parce que pour pouvoir faire cette action, ils avaient fait un repérage avec un couple venant demander au maire où était la salle de mariage pour éventuellement prendre des photos. Et c'est là qu'ils avaient repéré la photo officielle de Macron. Et donc c'est l'élément par ruse qui fait qu'ils encourent 2 000 € d'amende. Tout ça est un peu ridicule, mais montre bien que cette forme d'action a aussi son efficacité. Kumi, what do you think?
Firstly, merci beaucoup. Thank you for everything that you're doing and all the people you're working with. Let me just tell you, don't be afraid, because let's just do a quick walk through history very quickly. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, and today in history, he's judged as one of the best human beings that ever walked this planet. Mahatma Gandhi went to prison multiple times. Today, he's revered as one of the greatest, all for civil disobedience. Martin Luther King, 41 times in prison. Today, in Washington, D.C., there's a big monument for him, as there is for any other president that they have in their monuments for presidents. Rosa Parks, the black woman in Alabama who refused to sit at the back of the bus, she was also thrown in prison. Today you go to Montgomery, Alabama, there's a massive statue in honor of her. So history is going to judge you and all of us here very kindly if in fact there are still human beings left to actually write up that history. Okay? The second thing on the specifics of the example you gave, I was smiling completely as you were telling your story about these photographs. But let me just say this. Of course, what you did meets the classical definition of civil disobedience. You were non-violent. You used an action that could be interpreted to be breaking some law. Usually, the law that you're breaking in that case is more like a municipal regulation rather than a major law, even though when it happens now, governments not only here in France but around the world, including, by the way, governments that claim to be promoters of democracy, are using every possible way to make resistance to the journey they are taking on in. And the journey they are taking on in, let's be very clear, governments are taking us on a suicidal journey right at the moment, right? And so you meet all the classical definitions. But let me say something more about photographs of politicians. I come from Africa, right? Every country you go to, you are seeing these photographs of heads of state and so on. This is my personal position. We should ban the idea of politicians' photographs in all public places. It's a waste of money. It's unfair advantage for the next election because you're building your profile. And I tell you, if we banned it globally, if we said, nah, we mustn't wait, because every 5 years you have to change thousands of these things. If you collected all the money in 1 year, we could solarize probably 1 or 2 African countries and make them completely energy dependent, independent. So I think that our political leaders say one thing and behave in another way. Because we got the leaders of France and all of that for years and years preaching to our leaders in Africa and Asia and Latin America, you have to behave like this, you mustn't be corrupt. Today, Donald Trump is one of the most corrupt leaders of any political administration anywhere in the world, and the US political system cannot actually deal with him. He's able to run circles around them. So what I say to the people in the United States today, thank you for all the help you've been giving us around the world to strengthen our democracy, in the democracy promotion effort. Right now, we say to you, keep your money. Please just improve your own democracy back home because you got a lot more to do. But let's be clear. Some of the things that political leaders are saying and doing are shocking, right? Now, on a lighter note, I should say, before I came to Amnesty, I was able to say much more undiplomatic things about various political heads of state, including Donald Trump. Now I represent a very big human rights movement. I have to be a bit more sensitive about, for example, whether I can call him a fascist, right? But let me put it in a diplomatic way. Donald Trump ticks off various definitions in the classical fascism box. What are those? Undermining of the media, dividing people on the basis of identity, undermining public institutions, using disinformation, using repression, using divide and rule, and so on. So when you see somebody ticking off so many of the boxes, civil disobedience becomes critically important if the formal political system cannot correct the incorrect behaviors of people like Donald Trump. So I applaud your civil disobedience. I wish you luck. And to the people that are facing those prison sentences and so on behalf of Amnesty International, what I can commit to, anybody going to prison for a peaceful act of civil disobedience, fighting for human rights, and climate change is the biggest human rights issue today, I would say, Amnesty will do everything in its power to defend. And my colleague Sylvie there, who's the head of the Amnesty International in France, I'm sure you can speak to her afterwards, and we will support you as the best we can. And let me tell you something, you won't be alone. The Greta Thunbergs of the world, the religious leaders of the world, and so on will stand with you. Let us not allow them to stop resistance by using the example you gave. The example you gave is very clever, if I heard it correctly. You are saying that they're not giving them like 1 month in prison, they're giving them €2,000 fine because they want to make it expensive, right? Because normally in law, if you took down a portrait in most countries, other than dictatorships, you'll get trespassing, public nuisance, and so on. And usually, at worst, it's going to be 1 or 2 weeks in prison. This year is a deliberate act to prevent resistance.
Thank you, Kumi. On va remercier évidemment Kumi pour ce discours tonique et enthousiasmant. Je voudrais terminer, moi, en rappelant juste une anecdote sur Kumi. C'est quand j'ai fait ta connaissance donc, à Vancouver en 2010, et tu venais de prendre la direction de Greenpeace International. Il y avait certains écologistes qui m'avaient parlé en disant Greenpeace à la tête Kumi à la tête de Greenpeace, c'est pas terrible. Et on m'avait dit à l'époque que tu avais un surnom, c'était pastèque. Parce que vert dehors, rouge dedans. Et moi j'avais dit, pour moi c'est pas une critique, c'est un compliment. C'est enfin quelqu'un qui a compris que l'écologie ne s'en sortirait qu'en mêlant la question sociale, économique, politique pour être globale.